Hi everyone, it's Karen here. Welcome to another video with me and Lavinia stamps. And today I'm going to share with you how I created this really simple but very striking card. I've used gold embossing powder here, and then I've put festive berries over the top. This one, using exactly the same stencil, I've embossed in white embossing powder and used peeled paint, mustard seed and spiced marmalade, all in distress oxides, over the top. The technique for both of these cards is exactly the same. So, as I said, for this one, festive berries with my stencil brush, with a piece of A6 multivarious card. Now, you could use these cards, Christmas, birthday, thinking of you. It lends itself to any nature of occasions and is so very simple. The stencil that I've chosen here is Dynamic. It's one of the brand new ones and is fabulous for this technique. But if you don't have that one, you can use any number of the Lavinia stencils. So what we've got here, this one is called Replenish, and this one is going to be fabulous at Valentine's time. Look at those gorgeous little hearts. So that one. This one is called Divine, and isn't it divine? And it would work really well with this technique. This one is Glory, that one super as well. And this one is Orbs. So any of those or any of the stencils, the only thing you want to be aware of is not to have too much of a gap, because it's harder to control the ink pad as it goes down. I'll talk about that in a minute. But if it were me, I would be staying away with stencils with so much space in between them. It works lovely on a card like this. There, I've used it in the background, but not for this technique. So, A6 card. I'm going to pop my stencil down. For this, I'm going to be using my embossing ink pad, which is a little stickier than any of the other ink pads that we've got, and I am going to be using my gold rich embossing powder. So I'm just going to have a piece of paper that I'm going to fold in half to hand, and you'll see why in a second, but there we have it. So I'm just going to take my embossing pad. I'm not going to take my stencil down, and I am literally just going to touch the card through the stencil with this embossing pad. Now, I am not pressing too hard. If you press too hard, it will squelch through the stencil, and then you won't get the definitive lines that I have on my card. So, tapping, just going to move it over so that I can cover the whole card. And now you can see why, if you had a stencil which had too many big holes through it, you would land up with too much squelching and not the definition that we've achieved here. So there we have it. I'm just going to pop the lid on that, pick up my stencil. I will put this straight into some soapy water. I'm going to bring back my piece of folded paper, and I know you can't see that very well, but you will in a second. So I'm sprinkling my gold embossing powder all over the card, and you can start to see what we're going to have underneath. Just making sure I haven't missed any pieces here, because after all, this is the focal point of the card. Lovely, look at that. Now, if you were going to do a job lot of these, you could do them up like this and then put them to one side. Do a job lot and then come and heat emboss them afterwards. But before I do anything else, I'm just going to tip this straight back into my little pot and put the lid on. Just going to give it a check. That's lovely. And then I'm going to heat emboss it. I got a bit of a flip. There you go. Super. And before I do that, where I was splodging my ink pad around the edge of the card, my work surface has got a bit of that sticky embossing powder on it. No, embossing ink on it. So what you want to do is make sure that your heat gun is well warm before you start to emboss it, and that way you're less likely to burn the card and more likely to get an even result really quickly. So there we have it, beautifully embossed. You can see that lovely crisp image and how it's come through the stencil. And then really simply you're going to take your colours. As I say, I'm using Festive Berries in Distress Oxides for this one, and I am literally going to cover the entire card with my colour. And as I showed you in the one with the white embossing powder, I used 3 colourways, and to do that I just put a patch over here, a patch over here, and filled in the rest. Don't worry if you're going over the embossing powder and it dulls it a little, because we've got a quick little technique which will buff it up and make it really bright and shiny too. So you can see how super quick this is. So there we have our card, which is covered with our ink. And I'm just going to take a piece of kitchen towel, just a normal piece of kitchen towel, and I'm going to scrunch it up and buff it. And the same technique would apply if I was using it with the white embossing powder. So you can see now the difference between the side that I've buffed and the other side. The other side is a little duller. Hey, if you were looking for the antique sort of look, then don't need to buff it. But I quite like the bright look, so I prefer to buff it. You are going to get a bit of residue from the coloured ink, but there you have it, beautiful. And that is as simple as it is. So then I just stamped Heartfelt Verses on a piece of little card, cut it out, and I'm going to pop that on the side of my card. To stick it down, because I wanted it raised a bit, I will use my 3D sticky fasteners. If you've got tape, that will work just as well. And I'm just going to pop piece here, piece here. And I'm just going to pop this at the bottom there on my card. And then what I would do is take my ribbon, mount it to the back of my card, and put it on the face of my card. So how simple and how bold, striking, effective is that? I would love to see your makes. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll be back again next week. Bye for now.